Finally, it has arrived. Beta branch version 1.5.10 for Bannerlord has just hit us, and it is a pretty juicy patch. There is a lot going on here, so in my typical fashion of upfronting all the knowledge, I'm going to give you a quick Spark Notes version of 1.5.10. Then we're going to go through the entirety of the patch notes, and I'm going to show off some of the changes that have occurred after we go over those patch notes. But let's jump into the summary here. So they've removed the character level effect when calculating learn rate. That's our first note here. And why that's so important is because it removes the bottleneck that occurs in the later portions of the game. It used to be that the game relied upon individual skill levels to level your character up. Kind of think of that as Skyrim, but that would create a bottleneck around 15 to level 17. The new system would create a bottleneck around 25 to 30. Now, with the removal of the character level effect on learning rate, you no longer get that bottleneck, so you shouldn't have to worry about training up new skills in Bannerlord. Also, there's a new difficulty system that's been added in with more granularity at the same time. Basically, these are difficulty presets. So all the previous difficulty existed before. You just now have it all preset under one umbrella. You don't have to hit every single one of them to realistic, but you also have an option to do custom and choose things. And you can also choose whether or not your companions can die in combat, which is a really huge boon. We also have improved battle movement speed progression for athletics. Right now, if you have athletics, it goes from walking pretty fast to just like ungodly quick. It now has a better progression as that skill scales up. Sieges got a huge AI fix for pathing and using defensive points, which is great because there's a ton of new scenes for villages, castles, and cities. I'll show some of those off. We don't usually do it, but some of the castles and cities have changed in such a drastic way that it makes them really amazing looking, especially for some of the sieges that you can probably do with them. Clan parties now have stances to determine how they engage enemies, so you can have them be aggressive and actually attack individual villages and parties they come across, or defensive, in which case they only do it if someone else is around with them. Clan parties can also have a limited wage so that they stop recruiting and giving units to garrisons. They'll maintain that specific wage, and even though you can even do this for your garrisons as well. So this way you don't have clan parties of your own that just keep growing in size and keep hamstringing your economy. So it's a nice little improvement there. There were 10 total troop changes, such as Stygian bowmen using axes now, Azurai skirmishers being renamed to light archers, and being a straight range unit rather than being a kind of skirmisher in between unit. These were some of the changes that we talked about in our unit overhaul video that Taylor World said, hey, we really like these. We're going to add them into the game. So huge shout out there. Thank you very much. Lots of economy changes, especially to the way that hearths work. Towns have been infused with more money, and a lot of other changes around economy to hopefully balance stuff out, especially with smithy and woodworking workshops. Their overall money increase has been, or I'm sorry, their money output has been increased. Rebellions will now come at a higher rate, with a higher defection rate the more that individual nobles dislike their king. Ransoms have finally been added for characters that you capture, which is so awesome. When you get a kingdom when you join a kingdom as a vassal, you're given special equipment and elite troops, and I'll show that later in the video, but you're given 5 tier 4 and 1 tier 5 of each individual kingdom's noble line, and then 1 weapon that corresponds to that culture. So for instance, Stygia gets a 2-handed axe, Khazate gets a step warbow, there's a special 2-handed sword for the Empire, and Britannia gets a combination 1-handed, 2-handed sword. And I believe it is a special horse for Azurai and a special, I think it was a sword for Valandia as well. I've taken pictures of them. You'll find them at the end of the video. Also, your character now comes up as a preview in the load menu, which is kind of nifty. And lastly, they've added a campaign intro cinematic when you press new campaign. But that is the down and dirty quick patch notes here. There was a lot to go through, but this is all the information you need if you want to get going. Your previous saves will work on 1.5.10. There's nothing in here that would really say, hey, you need to make a new save to experience these. So you're good to keep going as is. I did experience a little bit of crashes when I was using the RTS mod, so shut that off if you're using it. When you jump into any kind of battle scene, it crashes the game, so shut those off. But honestly, that's it. If that's what you wanted to know for 1.5.10, go ahead, download that beta. You're going to find it in the properties. You go to right-click on the game in Steam, go to properties, go to the betas tab. It's not going to be at the bottom. It's going to be right below 1.5.1. So if you can't find it, that's probably why, but go ahead and get started on testing 1.5.10. But that's all you need to know. If you want, go ahead and close the video down. For those of you that want to get into the nitty gritty, let's jump into those patch notes. And if you are leaving, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below. Like I always say, it does help a ton. So thank you very much for watching, but let's get into the big dirty patch notes. So as always, things are highlighted green as a boon, red as a nerf, and cyan is just something else I'm going to talk about. Now for performance, we have improved campaign map party performance with code refactoring. Probably one of the things that made this take so long was that code refactor. Slightly reduced video memory usage on the campaign map, increased quick conversation loading performance. I always thought that was pretty quick, but it has gotten faster. Not noticeably, it's just like when I went to test it across 1.5 and across 1.10, I noticed finally after doing it enough times that, oh, I guess it's just a little bit quicker, but it's a little bit more streamlined in portions where you're jumping into a quick conversation on a battle scene. For example, talking to someone outside of a castle wall would be an example of that. This getting a little bit of load performance increase. Now for art, added a new campaign intro that plays before a new campaign or sandbox. This only played for a new campaign, not sandbox. So try on new campaign if you want to see it, and I will show you later on in the video. They added new village scenes, up to 23 new for all of the different cultures, and then 10 new town scenes for Cyronia, Onira, Jacqueline, so on and so forth. We're going to be taking a look here at Cyronia later, as well as the Varison Castle. And it's pretty awesome. These are really awesome scenes now. Varixand before was just a castle around like kind of like a marshy swamp. Now it has a huge moat with a big, huge drawbridge here. Cyronia has a really awesome blowout on its walls. The walls are bigger, they're longer. There's actually like an inner keep, and there's a little kill box out in between one of the walls. So you have to go through a lot to actually get to the keep. So this is all hopefully adding towards keep battles coming in what I would hope is 1.6. Also got a new pattern scarf if you're going about the town, a new helmet, which looks awesome. I'm going to show you later. We got some new leather boots, improved performance and visuals for Sturgian level 1 and 2 castle models, and improved various materials and textures. I'm not sure which textures and materials, but they've been improved nonetheless. For the UI, added a player character visual to the save load screen. Now, if you go to load in right now, you'll notice that it'll be a black silhouette of a character that you just don't have. You have to save in 1.5.10, then it will start to appear. So if you haven't done that yet, then it's not going to be visible. It'll just be a silhouette. Added additional information to the Kingdom Wars tab, which is pretty cool here. Added a war log tab. Players can now see the recent events that have happened. Separated captured towns into 2 separate bars in the war item, captured towns and castles. Then added a prisoners bar. Added towns, castles, and tributes bar to the truce items. Added detailed tooltips to some of the bars to show detailed information about the values in those bars. So overall gives you more information about how your war is going in a kingdom versus some arbitrary bars and sliders that kind of really don't mean much. Added difficulty presets to campaign options, freebooter, warrior, and Bannerlord like I was talking about. And then pretty much just kind of look at this as the previous difficulties, just categorized as a preset. Bannerlord is realistic with everything, but you can also have some different stuff here. Added a new difficulty option for persuasion success chance and clan member death chance in missions. It can either be 100% off, 50% on, or just normal. So you can choose that now as you so wish. Notables in the settlement overlay are now sorted by their power. Previously, only nobles were sorted and notables were randomly ordered. But this is nice, so you can see which ones have. So when you jump into a settlement, the ones that are closest to the left are going to have higher power. So you can know if you do those quests, you're going to be increasing relation with people that are going to give you better recruits. A nice little visual quality of life increase. Added time of day and click to reset camera tooltip to the time of day circle located on the center of the map bar. Why this is cool is that before if you just looked at that bar, it didn't do anything. Now you actually click it and you can see what time of day it is. So you have a good idea for, say, example, your stamina, how fast it's recovering if you are crafting, and a number of other little things like getting an idea of how many hours have gone by. Skill passive gain info is now visible by default in the character development screen. Added mount information to encyclopedia troop equipment icons. It was hidden before, but now you can actually see it all the way through, which is quite nice. A ton of fixes here. Now for the battles and sieges on the campaign map, this is something that I'm going to be talking about in a list video that I've got going out tomorrow, or maybe the day after, of top 10 changes we need to see in Bannerlord. And this really falls into it. And it's nice to see a lot of these improvements that have been made. Parties would sometimes lift an ongoing siege due to a high wounded ratio so they could travel to nearby towns to rest and return to siege when healed. This loop has been fixed. So for example, if you are watching a siege go by the AI, there's a simulation going on, right? They will lift that siege if it gets to a certain threshold of wounded, rather than just completing the siege and winning. And this was a frustrating thing to watch, especially if you were on the defending end and you just wanted the castle to win and beat out the attacker. They would just leave. Or vice versa, if you wanted to take that castle, your attacker would just leave. So it's nice to see that's been fixed. A number of other little improvements here, mainly about how to break in and out of sieges or kind of ending a siege and how that affects your relationship. Your relation with your notables, not like your actual relationship. Improved the battle spawn system. The spawn distance between all types of formations has been lowered, so you won't have formation number 4 spawning far to the right up on a hill. They're a little bit more dense now, and it makes a little bit more sense. The distance between cavalry units in regular and loose formations has also been lowered. So right now there was a bug that occurred for any cavalry formation. They would be in a loose formation, even if they were in regular. Party/army leader heroes now spawn at the center of their forces in missions. Formations were referred to according to the type of the first unit added to them, which caused various inconsistencies. So for example here, putting an infantry soldier into number 3, which is typically cavalry, then swapping that infantry soldier out and then putting cavalry in number 3 would make it so your character would say infantry whenever you selected them in the combat map. That has now been fixed here. A more complex but accurate logic that takes into account the most numerous troop type was added. So implemented a logic, this is for sieges especially here, implemented a logic that makes agents choose the shorter direction to circumvent blocker nav meshes. The lack of this logic was most significantly shown when agents tried to move to a pushing position around a moving siege tower from the front, when it would have been much easier if they went around it from the other side. This should help you have your random AI not just get killed because they're trying to jump onto a siege engine. In addition to, fixed a bug that sometimes caused archers to not use archer positions, which I can't tell you how frustrating that is when you're on the defense. Even more so, this is another good one. Fixed a bug that caused soldiers to stay in place instead of following the siege ram and towers until reaching the wall. That is, it was so annoying to do a siege and just have stacks of soldiers sitting there getting plucked apart by archers. So some very nice improvements to the siege, and we'll have to see how these actually play out in the game. So for the character development system, again, we've removed the level effect when calculating the learning rate. Increasing the character level now no longer reduces the learning rates. Improved the battle movement speed progression concerning the athletic skill, reduce the movement speed increase effect of all perks. So what this means here is, as you increase your athletic skill, you'll notice that your character will gradually get faster rather than going from pretty quick to ungodly fast. So a nice little improvement. For the clan and party screen here, clan and parties can now be assigned a general stance between defensive, neutral, or aggressive. Again, if defensive is selected, they'll just pretty much not engage, whereas aggressive, they will take a more hostile stance. You can now limit the wages of all clan parties, including garrisons. If a given limit is reached, these parties or garrisons stop recruiting units. Other parties won't leave units to garrisons that have already reached the given wage limit. All castles and towns now also recruit 1 unit daily. This recruit is selected from the local notables. So a very nice little quality of life improvement, and it really helps to stop becoming such an anchor on your economy as you have these growing clan parties. Now for the troop changes here, I'm actually going to change this after looking at it in the game, and I'll talk about it in a sec. But for the troop changes, anything that's in red is obviously a nerf, green is a buff, and then cyan are the ones that we talked about in our troop overhaul video that Tail World said, hey, love these ideas, we're going to be adding them into the game. So removed spears from Valandian swordsmen. Why I put that as a nerf is that it makes it so that Valandian swordsmen can't threaten into cavalry as well, but that's okay. It wasn't their intention. So it's kind of like one of those catch-22 nerfs. Like, yes, it sucks that they don't have spears, but it fits their role better. Sturgi and veteran bowmen now use commoner axes because we were saying, hey, it would be great if they used axes, and they said, no, you sold me on it. Let's do it. Updated stats of Družinik champion and Družinik to make them better all-around characters. Now, after comparing the stats in the game, and we'll show you later, this is not a huge buff. It makes them terrible as cavalry. They'll lose to Valandian Vanguard, and it makes them about passable with non-noble infantry soldiers. So it made them all round in the sense that they can threaten, I guess, on both foot and on horse because they had low athletics. But to me, honestly, it took, for example, the Družinik champion, Družinik went from 220 one-handed to like, I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's something drastically lower. It's 200 one-handed. So it had a huge 20s drop, and its athletics went up to 140, which is great, but its riding went from 200 down to 170, and its polearm went from 260 down to 170. So like I said, they just became a lot worse at what they were supposed to be good at, and that for the sake of being all around. And in what my experience for Bannerlord being all around isn't amazing. Added a hook guard to the Manavlian weapon so that it can dismount on hit. The Imperial Bucellarii now bow skill has been raised to 140 from 130. Aserai Skirmisher has been renamed to Aserai Light Archer and is now a ranged unit. Battalion Wildling now has 140 athletics and 120 one-handed, up from both 130 and 130 respectively. The Clan Warriors, Battalion Clan Warriors now have a set of throwing daggers, which is awesome. Gives them the ability to use that throwing skill they've got. Revised stats of Caravan Guard and veteran Caravan Guards and armed traders, so they do a little bit more damage. And also, there's some renaming of some units. Nothing cool there. But here's a cool one. Fixed a bug that prevented your brother from being assigned to a caravan. So your brother who does have high trade can now be assigned to a caravan if you so wish. Now, for your kingdoms and diplomacy, when joining a kingdom as a vassal for the first time, the player will now be given special equipment and elite troops. Like I was saying, 5 tier 4 and 1 tier 5 unit, as well as 1 special equipment piece per culture, dependent upon that culture's emphasis. Relation with the king is now much more important when it comes to defection calculation. If a clan has poor relation with the king, it has a higher likelihood of defecting, which is pretty crazy, right? You're probably going to see a lot more of this going on in your campaign. The loyalty drift medium for settlements was slightly reduced, increasing the possibility of rebellions occurring. Rebel clans are now also stronger. The rebel leader spawns with a higher amount of money, while the rebelled settlement starts with a better militia and higher food amount. This kind of helps prevent people from just jumping on any rebellion and taking over the city in the early portions of the game when they otherwise shouldn't be able to do so. So this is kind of a little bit of a insulation against PCs exploiting this, and insulation against NPCs taking advantage of this. The player will now receive ransom offers for prisoners kept by the player and the player's clan members. Can't say how awesome that is. Thank God. Now for economy and trade, towns now have 50% more money on average. Total hearth value of villages and prosperity value of castles and towns had a high inflation. The daily increase of these two variables is now smaller, which prevents high inflation during late game. Hearth can really get out of control, so it's nice that they did pop this little kind of cap on it. Wood workshops and smithies were making much less profit compared to other workshops. Profits for these two workshops have been slightly increased. Now for settlement actions, tournament weapons have been slightly revised for a better gameplay experience. I've yet to really see how this plays out. So if you have seen how this plays out, feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know exactly how this has changed gameplay. I did like 2 tournaments and nothing felt different. So go ahead and let me know. Now for quests and issues, added remaining time value to the story mode. So that's nice if you're doing the main campaign. That's where you know how long until you reach the terminus for your campaign. In and out quest reward gold has been fixed to 800. So for me is a really good example for anyone who's been exploiting this. Again, like myself, you can no longer just get more and more and more and more money from this quest. It's been capped at 800, unfortunately. Now going into conversations and encounters, added new facial expressions as the default idols for NPCs based on their traits and relationship to the player. Then the equipment of non-hero troops in map conversations has been diversified. So again, some things to kind of bring stuff a little to life. And actually scrolling back up here, it's something that I didn't highlight, but when I actually played, I didn't realize how cool it was. So added new sounds that trigger when clicking various buttons on the settlements panel on the campaign map. So why this is cool is it just kind of adds a little life to what you're doing. You don't just click buttons aimlessly and it has that like that, just like that clicking noise. This actually will make like, oh, you're going into the castle, here's a drawbridge noise. Oh, you're going into the town, here's a door creaking noise. Like it just makes it sound a little bit more fun when you're moving around any of these individual menus. Makes it have a little bit more personality. I don't even know why that was the noise I made for clicking, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to edit that out. So moving into other fixed DLSS ghosting issues, added hidden culture affixes to several armors, weapons, horse harnesses, and horses, which will make pieces of the culture more likely to be found in said culture settlements, which is a lovely little addition. For multiplayer, though, some nerfs have been done to all throwing weapons. Also, though, they've added a little bit of an adjustment here to cavalry blocking cones because cavalry has just a disgusting ability to block everything thrown at them. So shields no longer cover below the boots of the rider, making it easier to hit the horse. That is, again, for multiplayer only. Again, for multiplayer as well, added the ability to start kick pulls or automatically kick people after an excessive amount of team damage and kills have been done, which is quite nice as well for balancing out any kind of TKs going on. Now for both, a headshot kill indicator has been added to the kill feed. And every time you do a headshot, someone yells, boom, headshot. No, they don't. That's just a really, really old video. If you're old like me, you get it. Now moving into performance, we get performance improvements related to memory usage, improved CPU, multi-core performance. This is the one we get every patch note, and every time I'm excited to see it. I always love to see performance increase. Now for combat, improved cavalry charging AI decisions by reducing the amount of time a unit spends moving away from the enemy in certain scenarios. So the way that the AI for the cavalry is supposed to work is if you have it charge, it's technically, these things have not been as clear cut in the most recent patches, but it's supposed to use a sword and shield and jump into combat. If you use advance, it's supposed to use the weapon and has the best skill width and to the best the best ability of its class. So example, a cavalry unit that is set to advance is supposed to charge through with a polearm and keep pushing through to cycle charge back into it. It's supposed to continuously charge the enemy. Using charge also seems to do the same thing right now. It's not supposed to be that way, but this improvement has made it so that the distance between connecting with the enemy and turning back around to cycle into it has been reduced. It's not going to be as big of a loop. It's going to be a tighter loop, so they'll be able to actually return damage more and more and more and more effectively. Adjusted the range calculation of range units to prevent targeting of very distant targets. And also why this is important, if you go to do advance, your range unit will obviously stay at max range to use its weapon. This range calculation should affect how that works as well. And then a ton of other modding changes. So let's jump into the actual game to show off some of these changes in the flesh and get your guys' opinion on stuff. Okay, so to start off, let's just go ahead and press new campaign and show off this new cinematic. It's pretty cool. I didn't expect this to be coming, and it's kind of cool to see it.
For 500 years, the Calradian Empire dominated the continent. Its armies scattered foes before them. The strongholds of proud tribes crumbled beneath its engines of war. From the forests of the north to the wastes of the south. All was brought beneath the standard of their legions. Brutal as the conquest was, the wise agreed that it brought peace. The land, now untroubled by armies, grew rich, but empires, like men, grow old. Leaders lose a common cause. Corruption spreads. Old enemies learn the Empire's tricks and devise new ones of their own. Until one day, the bonds holding the Empire snap. Then comes the Civil War, pitting all against all. A time of hatred. A time of suffering. But also, even in the worst hours, a time of courage and defiance. As new leaders arise, from new places and new peoples, to turn back the tides of destruction and bring forth a new world from the ashes of the old.
All right. And it's great because you now get a little context as to what the campaign is and what's going on and what it all means and everything. So we're going to quickly just kind of jump through this to show off the new difficulty screen. It's weird that I'm not making a bald and bearded character, but I'm going to just go ahead and move past that and just deal with it as I am. So go to next, and here you go. So here are your three presets for Freebooter, Warrior, and Bannerlord. And like I said, it's the same difficulty. Nothing's changed. You're just having a preset so you don't have to set every single one of them. So from Freebooter to Warrior to Bannerlord. And then we also get these two new ones, Persuasion Success, the amount of extra chance for you to succeed in Persuasion. I would probably put that at a 10% bonus right now because it seems to be that all Persuasion doesn't really work yet. Now, clan member death possibility in battle, the possibility for your clan members to die after being knocked down in battle. I would also reduce that by 100% because that is terrible. It is horrible to lose a companion because they just jump into the fray willy-nilly. Or you could not. It's up to you. But these are the new game difficulties, and that is the new cinematic. But let's jump into some stuff in the actual game. Jumping into the new diplomacy screen, we can take a look at a little bit more granularity here when we're taking a look at the Northern Empire versus Khazate war that I am a part of. We see all of the people invested in both of these wars, including minor clans, right, which is pretty cool. You can see them right here. My terrible banner, which didn't load in properly as well. But we also get some granularity when we hover over the prisoners bar to see where those prisoners are, making a prisoner escape a lot easier to do, and who they are. For towns, nothing conquered. I think this is actually rated. I don't know why it says 4 and 6 there, because when we look at castles, we see that there are none that are conquered by Khazate, but one by the Northern Empire. We get these two buttons over here now. So if I click show recent events in this war, I get a little slider and it shows me everyone, what battles were won, who captured who, so on and so forth. So when I go to the top of this list, I can see that there was a new owner of Epinosa Castle, and it is Lucan. So this reflects right here that that castle has been captured by us, and it shows any raids and where they were as well. So just again, more granularity to the actual war screen. You can see what's going on. I think this is a pretty nice addition here to especially find out where those prisoners are being held, so you can break them out with that new prisoner break mechanic that was added in 1.5.9 or 8. One of the last two patches. Now, as far as the new items that were added, we have the two new helmets. The closed knight helmet, which looks pretty awesome here. A little bit of a Vlandia spice in there with a knight helmet with a brass face guard. So an even cooler looking, more ornate version of it. Like this little crest around here. Looks quite spicy. I love it. We also have the heavy tartan cape, which I think that this is it. It says scarf on the patch notes, and these are the only two that I don't remember ever seeing, but it might not actually be this. And as far as the boots go, I believe it's this one. Oh, no, I'm sorry, no. This one, the sturdy leather boots, and then the belted leather boots. Those are our new Sturgian boots here. And just to give you a quick look at the stats here, tier 6, 45 armor on this guy, and then tier 6, 44 armor here. These are the new items that were added into the game with the patch. There's also some items that were added in for the individual. One of the other additions is the way the new Vassal System works. So if I go and talk to this character and say, hey, you know what? I am ready to be your vassal. Okay, you go through the menu prompts and you get this. You get 6 troops. Again, it is going to be 1 tier 5 and 5 tier 4 troop of that respective noble line. And then you're also going to get a weapon or item of some sort. So it's this one for the Empire, and we're going to flash up some of the other ones for the other factions for you. But each one is going to give you something different and unique for those factions. If you want the pictures for all this, I'm going to put it in the description. I'll post it on Imager, and you guys can go ahead and just take a look at what all of the items that you'll be getting per culture. Again, just to kind of quickly recap, Sturgia gives you a 2-handed axe. You get a horse with the Asarai. You're going to be getting a this weapon for all iterations of the Empire. Western, Northern, Southern, and you'll get a step war bow for the Khazate. And I believe for Valandia, it is a sword as well. Let me check here. Yeah, it's a 2-handed sword, and you get a 2-handed sword for Britannia. A 2-handed and 1-handed sword for Britannia. Think of it as the Romphalia head made into a sword. But these are the new items you get for becoming a vassal for the first time for any of the empires in Calradia. So here we are in Sarnia, and this is 1.5.9. So you can see the castle wall has a pretty cool little moat in it. It's kind of like it's like effective-ish. You have a tower that kind of shoots out to the moat, looking over both of them. So this is just a quick shot from the outside in version 1.5.9. So let me now show you what it looks like in a version 1.5.10. Now 1.5.10, things look a lot different. You can see that there is no moat anymore on the left or right sides of this city. No drawbridge, nothing like that. Now I am using the actual in-game photo mod, or I'm sorry, photo mode. So if this is a little bit slow, I apologize. I was using a photo mod before. Now in 1.5.9, this is not like that. You can see that after you go through the actual gate here, there is basically this killing field where you're surrounded by towers. Your characters have to go up either this right side or through the left over there under that little bridge. So this city itself is also much bigger. This city was not this size. So this all tells me that it's lining up for a really cool keep battle, because as we move over to this portion of the city, you can see that the keep is also far and away, almost lofted up with more walls around it. So it is cool to see this huge overhaul to Sarnia on just, and you can see some of it is not meant to be seen from this angle, but it's really cool to see this city just kind of get beefed up. So sieging this is going to be a lot different, especially with the amount of hard points and defensible points for archers. And it has had a lot of life imbued into it. And remember, this is not just one of the scenes. I'm sorry, there's not just one of these scenes. There is multiple. Let's jump over to one of the castles that also got this touch. So here's Verixen Castle in Valandia, and you can see it's kind of surrounded by a marsh. It's got a little gangplank on the far left. You have this drawbridge, or I'm sorry, just a bridge over this kind of ramshackle moat with a kind of just a wooden wall, right? Almost like a Motte and Bailey, but not quite. And you have the keep in the back. So this is just 1.59. With 1.5.10, that little swamp is gone. And now we have a pretty good proper moat all the way around this bad boy. So sieging this is going to be a lot harder. It's got stakes built into the wall. So getting ladders onto it is going to be a lot more of a challenge here. You can see there's probably a point over here on the left, but this is not like this in 1.5.9. This has clearly got a lot more of an intense slope attached to it, as you can see. For the most part, the interior is somewhat the same. There was like a little isolated like secondary wall in here, but that has been removed, and it's just a big nice circle with the keep over here. So you can see that a lot of these scenes have had a lot of really good and fun improvements made into them, making sieging these castles and these cities a lot more unique as you move your armies around Colradia. And to close us out, we'll talk really quickly about the Druzhnik, and it has gotten a pretty significant nerf. The one-handed, the polearm, and athletics and riding of these characters have been, for the most part, significantly reduced, all to add to their athletics ability. Same thing here with the champion. Like I said before, this was 220 one-handed, I think 260 polearm, and 200 riding, and now it's 200, 170, and 170 riding, and now 140 athletics, up from 60. So while it is good that, of course, these guys can move better on foot, what I have noticed with this is they would really be hard fought to win out against any of the other units in the game, like Oathsworn, Sergeants, or Legionaries. They really kind of lost their fighting power against them, as well as against other cavalry, in hopes of making them more well-rounded. And again, in my experience in Bannerlord, the more specialized a unit is, the more effective it actually is, because you have so many units in an army that can fill up any holes that you might have. So I'm not too sure 100% where where the overall goal is on removing all those skills, because if I kind of compare this to, let's just go ahead and look at a cataphract, right? Look at the elite cataphract by comparison. This guy's still a machine, right? 200, 260, 200 riding, 60 athletics, but I don't care how well he does on foot. I want to make sure he is a good, strong, competent shock cavalry unit, which he is. Compared, of course, back to the Druzhnik champion, 200, 170, 170, and 140 now. So that's a little bit of a gripe and a little bit of an issue here with 1.5.10, but for the most part, the entire patch is pretty stable. There are some points I've noticed that it did crash, but it looked like that was related mainly to my mods. There might be some issues with the new economy, so be wary. Always make sure you're backing up your saves before you jump onto a beta branch, because you don't want to lose your playthrough. What I would do is load up one of your saves, then just press save as and type in the same name of your save, 1.5.10. That way you've got it, it's back, your old one exists. Don't ever play the old one, only play the 1.5.10 until you're sure everything is good. From my experience, things have been great, but I imagine that economy is probably going to cause a long-term bug, so be wary of that. But if the question is, should you test it? I absolutely think you should. There's a lot of really great improvements done with Bannerlord version 1.5.10, and I'm very excited for Bannerlord version 1.6. Be on the lookout, though, for that top 10 changes that need to happen here in Bannerlord coming out in the next day or two. Got quite a lot to talk about and quite a lot to display. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, all that fun action. But as always, have a good one and take care.